After 14 long years, we finally got Raging Blast 3, Sparking Zero. Now I know I've made a reputation to my vast following of 1,000 subscribers to be a fair and logical reviewer who weighs the positives and then, come on man, it's Doraganoboru Zetto. These are childhood memories here. I remember the Tenkaichi series. Who was I cooking with? Berta. Raging Blast 2, 5v5 fights, madness, absolute chaos. Who was my main? Super Saiyajin San Vegeta. He doesn't even exist in the show. Moving on to years later, we got Dragon Ball Fighters. Who did I main? Yeah! Dragon Ball will be a series I love until my dying breath. Now with that being said, recent anime games have a reputation for being phoned in garbage. Even my beloved Storm series has fallen to the mediocre curse. So, is Sparking Zero actually good? Now starting with the graphics. Bro, this game looks sexy. The art style bussin', the animation smooth. This is the best looking Dragon Ball game of all time. I know Kakarot exists and it can fuck off. Look at these character models and tell me different, bro. Developers, good shit, man.
If you were a dog, I'd scratch your belly. If you were a cat, I'd give you warm milk until you started to purr. But since you're neither of these, I'll just say thanks for a job well done.
The only game rivaling this is Fighter Z, but that's 2D, so we don't really care about 2D. Moving on to the main portion of this game, the gameplay. I gotta say, man, this is pretty good. The fighting mechanics are fun and they got some depth to them, I'm not gonna lie. But I do think they need to patch some stuff. As of recording this, I'm only like 3 or 4 days into playing this game. I've tried multiple characters because I haven't really found my main yet. I'm a villain guy, so I've tried Jiren, Hit, Berta, Raccoon, as well as some good guys like Super Saiyan 1 Goku, Trunks and Piccolo. Once I started to rank up, I settled on a duo of Jiren and Goku Super Saiyan 1 or Jiren, Berta and Raccoon as my trio. I haven't played much of the story, so I unfortunately don't have my GOAT Cooler unlocked yet. The story is kind of fucking boring and I'm pretty much a ranked addict at this point, but once I do have Cooler unlocked, I'll probably swap him out for Jiren. Anyway, I do think that some of the mechanics need to be patched. For example, I think Unblockables are kinda broken. I didn't even know Jiren had an unblockable until about 15 games in. As you can see in my first hour, I didn't really use his ultimate much. I'll be honest, I kinda forgot that unblockables were even gonna be in the game. I'm pretty sure the past games had them. I vaguely remember the Spirit Bomb being unblockable in the olden Raging Blast games and Tenkaichi games, but I honestly forgot about it. After I realized that though, it was so easy to exploit. If you have somewhat decent defense, which I've gone on to have, I'm not a god by any means, but I can vanish out of some attacks and I generally block. If you know when to ultimate, you can kind of cheese your way through at least the lower ranks. I don't usually do that since I prefer to have fun when I play, but watch this game where I decided to just spam my ultimate just to prove a point pretty much. Sure, the guy I'm playing is like a C rank and I'm sure he's not the best and I just got the game and yada yada yada, but the point still stands. This is somewhat of an exploit that I think might affect the game's longevity if players start to find the gameplay cheesy, abusable. Coming from someone who's played the last few Tekkens, and I understand this game isn't Tekken, but just hear me out here, not balancing your fighting game or at the very least not patching out bullshit will severely damage the game's reputation amongst its players. And sure, some people will say that the game is staying true to the characters by doing this, and I get it, but you kinda need to make sure that the Easter eggs of the franchise don't contradict to what makes the gameplay good. And this game at the end of the day will live and die by its gameplay, which is good by the way. I'm not calling the gameplay bad, it's just one aspect of it that I find a bit cheap. An anime game that did this poorly was One Piece Burning Blood. The fighting system as a whole was very different to Sparking Zero and it also had its upsides. But the one major thing that it did bad with one specific character kind of ruined that character. And it's kind of like a microcosm, I think the word is, of this situation. One Piece Burning Blood was a very fun game and I do wish that it did better so we could get a sequel with better mechanics. At its core it had decent gameplay, but the character Sanji was absolutely useless in this game. If you don't watch One Piece, quick rundown, the character Sanji is somewhat of a horny gentleman who refuses to use his hands to fight since he's a cook and refuses to hit women regardless of whether or not they're villains due to his chivalry. Because of that, the character went into some lovey-dovey state, meaning if your opponent had a female character, you were fucked. Also, with this being a 3v3 game, and with two of the main characters of the show being female in Nami and Robin, there was a decent chance your opponent chose a female character. It's a fun character trait and, you know, quirky or whatever in the show, but to include it in the game, it fundamentally made zero sense, since there were plenty of female characters, and kind of killed the character of Sanji in that game from being used, who had such a game-breaking limitation, which makes sense in the show. But do you see how sometimes having dedication to the accuracy of the product can kill the actual gameplay mechanics of your game? Back to Sparking Zero, this game has plenty of characters with unblockable ultimates. Shout out to this video. I kind of got the count from this and googling, but there wasn't a specific source breaking down how many characters have unblockables, so shout out to this guy. As of right now, there are over 30 characters with unblockables. Even if you don't count the unblockable grab ultimates, which are a bit easier to deal with, like Super Garlic Juniors, there are over 15 unblockable projectile or explosive wave ultimates like Super Saiyan 2 Gohan's or Jiren's that you've seen in this video, and that are so annoying to deal with. I know that they can be vanished, but trying to do that online in rank while possible is kind of retardedly difficult when people ult right in your face. I can vanish other stuff, and to be honest, most people don't even have the capability to vanish most attacks. A lot of people will just be spammers in this game. That's just how fighting games work. So to say that an exploit isn't really an exploit because the higher up players can sometimes negate it is disingenuous in my opinion. Outside of that, I'd say the combat is pretty fun. It seems to have some depth to it, and as I'm playing more, I'm finding that it does definitely have some depth to it. The difference in blocking to previous games is probably the biggest change I've seen so far, plus perception. The different uses of perception, plus vanishing and C counters. There's a whole lot to it, I must admit. I'm glad the mechanics seem to be deep enough to have a skill curve, and after some patches, I think this game could go far in terms of longevity. This could turn out to be the ultimate Dragon Ball Z game and kind of be like the Super Smash Bros of the Dragon Ball Z universe in terms of that type of longevity. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I post a video every week and I'm sure you'll enjoy them too. And yeah, back to the video. Alright, so a few days later, and I'm actually not so sure about my previous point. I've been playing a lot more with Hit and Berta and have been doing pretty well so far. I've been using Hit, Berta and I think base Goku. And while there are characters that are stronger than others in this game, the game is kind of chaotically unbalanced. Like I've beaten characters that are stronger than Hit with Hit because I can use some of his mechanics that are better than theirs, even though their damage and all of that is still better than my character. And I've killed a lot of stronger characters with Berta just because I know how to use Berta more. Plenty of characters have very useful abilities that make them all viable depending on the player. After Image is, that might be the most broken skill point ability in the game in my opinion. So far I like Hit, Jiren, Berta and Trunks, flipping between Hit and Jiren as my mains. Sure, the Gogetas and the Vegetas of the game can be a bit overwhelming, but they are definitely beatable. I don't completely denounce my point earlier though. While I still think unblockable ultimates are stupid and should be patched, or at least limited to like Goku Spirit Bombs or something, or maybe Goku and Broly, I don't know, but I still don't like the existence of them. They don't completely ruin the game. I think I was being a bit hyperbolic and reactive earlier. The game is completely unbalanced, I still think that, but maybe that's the point. You kind of have this fucking insane chaotic lineup of characters and it's up to you to attack it however you want. Some people will go for the most cheesy characters, some people will go for the most high damage characters, some people will go for the most memey characters. I think that's kind of what makes this fun. Some days I can try go for my try hard lineup, other days I can try go for my vibey trolly lineup with Berta. Sometimes I can just go for my base lineup. Sometimes I just want to play a character that I've always liked. Another thing I've learned a few days later from my original recording is about how different people play defense. Originally, my first few days playing the game, I kept running into, the perception spammers, people who just keep trying to spam perception, trying to fucking ultra instinct your shit. And at first, that seemed like the best and easiest way to play defense. But as I played, I learned that it's better to stand your base, block and look for opportunities to time your block correctly, counter or use perception or use that vanishing punch move, I don't know what the fuck it's called, the square X on PlayStation. Also, since a lot of players spam perception, using supers, ultimates and smash attacks are super useful. You can just get through their defense because technically they're not blocking. And once I realized that, I've been cooking people. So in terms of the gameplay, honestly it had more nuance than I gave it credit for. Coming from Rage and Blast, I thought it would just be Rage and Blast with a new skin with a few of the features from Tenkaichi. And honestly it is that, but with some extra depth for sure. I definitely underestimated it. Fuck Unblockables, I will die on that hill, but everything else, I think the gameplay is damn near perfect. Now moving on to the story mode. Story mode in Sparking Zero is a total letdown. I actually decided to play a bit more of it since my previous recording of a few days ago, and man, I wish I didn't. It is completely slapped together without much thought, and a lot of it honestly doesn't even have cutscenes. It's just a whole bunch of slideshows, and you can definitely tell this is not where all the effort went. And listen, I get it. Most people don't give a fuck about the story. Either you know the story off by heart because you're a Dragon Ball Z fan and you've seen it in 5 million games, or you don't know the story, and if you don't, this is the worst way to experience it. You have Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which I don't think is the best way to experience the story, but it's better than this. And you can also just fucking watch Dragon Ball Z abridged on motherfucking YouTube. That might be a better way to experience the story than this. There are so many alternatives, as well as watching obviously the normal original show or reading the manga. So I don't necessarily blame them for not putting in effort, but if that was going to be the case, why not just cut this out? Like, if you're not going to do it properly, why do it at all? Just cut it out, have like a boss battle rush or something instead. You got custom battles which are pretty fun. Maybe just hide character unlocks behind custom battles and just do boss battle runs. That seems like that would be more fun. The only good thing about the story, in my opinion, is those what if scenarios where they mess around with the timeline a bit and show alternate events. Those moments are kind of fun, and you know, it's cool to see what if Goku didn't take Piccolo's help, what if Gohan did this instead of that, what if character A went B instead of A. Those moments are cool, and they're nice little Easter eggs. I'm a fan of the show, so I will like those moments, but they're not enough to carry the whole story. Most people, including me, aren't even playing Sparking Zero for the story. It's kind of just there as a way to grind Dragon Balls to unlock characters. So I wish they just had like an arcade mode or something more engaging to unlock characters than this slop. Slop is a bit harsh. This is like half-hearted nonsense. Honestly, I think they could have just skipped including the story and most people wouldn't give a fuck. Alright, so overall, I have to admit, man, a 3D Dragon Ball arena fighter just hits the spot. You can call me biased all you want. There's just something about it that just goes crazy. Dragon Ball was made for this type of fighting game, and it shows. The fights, animations, character variety, combos, all combine into that perfect mix of Dragon Ball hype, and as a fan of the series, I love it. For those of you who aren't fans of the series and never played the old games, you might find it a bit chaotic. I'll be honest, it's not really made for you. Can non-Dragon Ball fans enjoy these games? 100%. No doubt about it. But if you've seen an arc or two of the anime, you enjoy this game infinitely more. It's night and day between how much you enjoy it if you're aware of the characters and the lore and everything. It makes it so much more cool getting to play as Cell, Cooler, Trunks, Future Trunks. And if you have a favorite character that's never in like a lot of the bigger games, I can't really relate, I like all the popular characters, but if you like if you like Yajirobe, he's rarely in games, or he's rarely been in games recently, then you get to play as, this game has any character you want that has had more than like 2 episodes of screen time, they're in there. Apart from maybe Dragon Ball characters, most of them aren't in there. But you will find a character that you like in the show that you've always wondered, ooh, this would be cool to play as. That character will most likely be in this game, and you will just get hyped over their lines, animations, supers, and every other detail this game nailed. Sparking Zero is actually good.